All right, so at this time, you should be able to see my screen and hopefully you're able to hear me well. If for whatever reason you feel like you're having technical problems, that's something just to drop into the chat if you can't see my screen or if you can't hear me. Definitely let me know. But so far, so good. I don't usually have any technical problems. So I've been really excited to do this presentation for everybody. And the topic today is how to be your own email management guru with Priority Matrix for Outlook 365. Email management is a huge aspect of everybody's day to day, and it's also a huge aspect of Priority Matrix. I would say, I'm lucky enough to be in kind of this user facing position where I learn a lot about people's needs and I learn a lot about how people found Priority Matrix. And for the last couple of years, it's been growing significantly in the sense that people are actually finding Priority Matrix as an email management solution. And then they come to discover, oh, wait, Priority Matrix is more. It's for projects, tasks, meeting support, and it also has this awesome email management aspect to it. So, email management is what we will be focusing on today. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So, I took a quick peek at the registration list before I started the session, and it's incredible to see that I have folks joining me with all different backgrounds, all different verticals, and really all different roles within organizations. And that just kind of justifies my thinking, which is, email management impacts everybody. And it's a super important thing to kind of talk about and get straightened out. So I'm sure these next couple of points can resonate with probably everybody on the meeting today, in the sense that what are the positive effects of, effective email management? What that looks like is stronger customer relationships, improved internal communication, and ultimately impactful decision making when you're able to see your emails alongside your priorities in your meetings. So, what is the priority matrix approach? And, why are we able to help so many people just like yourself with this email management idea? Priority matrix provides contextual evidence when you're prioritizing emails. I understand that statement is broad, and I'm definitely going to unpack that when we take a look at the live presentation. Priority Matrix is going to allow you to share progress updates directly through Outlook. So, for all of you that love spending time in your inbox, maybe you love it or you hate it, but ultimately you're in there for the most of the day, no problem. You can still provide those progress updates to your teammates without even leaving Outlook, which is pretty neat. Priority Matrix is going to help you manage emails, meetings, and your priorities in just one central platform. As I mentioned at the start of this webinar, we have a lot of people joining us today with all different backgrounds and all sorts of different roles. And that definitely stands true for people that I talk to every single day. I'm working with executive assistants, people in accounting, sales professionals, project managers. Those people can come from construction companies, tech companies, real estate, you name it. Most likely there's several organizations similar to that using Priority Matrix. The positions I have listed up here, I would say specifically EAs and those of us who are in sales really, really benefit from the email management aspect of Priority Matrix. And I can even walk you through a couple of flows that I've seen being super helpful for those positions. So, what are some of the tips for email management that I'm going to share with you today? I'm going to show you how you can consolidate similar tasks together, or rather, I guess I should say similar emails together to avoid duplication. We're going to look at setting reminders and deadlines to make sure nothing is slipping through the cracks. And we're going to look at having the opportunity to delegate those emails as needed without having to forward them back and forth and cause that giant dreaded traffic jam in your Outlook. So, what are kind of the next steps for all of you that are just getting started with PM? Number one, it's going to be really critical and actually super easy to do to just install Priority Matrix to Office 365 and Microsoft Teams. I also suggest attending my upcoming webinars, such as the Intro to Priority Matrix, which is being hosted this Friday, and the Advanced Intro to Priority Matrix, which I'm actually just hosting tomorrow. As mentioned, I always try to encourage those questions, so write them down to share during the webinars and after. The Q&A is available for every single webinar that I host. A little bit more about kind of the webinars that I mentioned in the middle today. So for today's session, um, what we're going to be looking at is very much focused on the email management aspect. So I know, potentially for a lot of you, this might be your first time seeing or learning about Priority Matrix. So if during today's webinar you feel like, oh, it would be helpful to learn a little bit more about the foundations of PM and just a little bit more about the basics, I would definitely say hang tight and stay tuned, but be sure to definitely tap into those intro sessions because that's where you're going to learn kind of the juiciness of how you can actually get started. So the next kind of, I would say probably 10 or 15 minutes or so of this webinar, it's a little bit of a shorter one, simply because we're just focusing on this very specific topic of email management. But for the demo today, as I mentioned, we'll be looking at Outlook 365 and the Teams integration, email management tips and tricks, project and task management suggestions tied into emails. And overall, I'm going to share with you all of the best practices that I'm aware of for email management, and hopefully they can help you guys as well. So without further ado, let's shift gears a little bit to kind of the live demo portion for today. I am going to pause here and ask the audience if you, Julian correcting my typo there. I did see that. That's my bad. But I'm going to pause here and ask any questions, comments, or concerns at this moment. I would love to answer those before we kind of dive into the next 10 or 15 minutes of this presentation. Okay, so it looks like we're all set. Eric, it looks like you might be typing there, so I'm going to keep an eye out for your question. What we're looking at here on my screen is this is my priority matrix, and it is integrated directly into my Microsoft Teams application. So this is one of the integrations you're going to need to set up. And then I'm going to pan to my Outlook here, where on the right-hand side, you can also see the Outlook add-in, which is where the email management aspect is going to come into play. But one thing that I always like to make clear for all of the new users, and this is definitely a common question that comes up, which is, am I going to be creating my projects to prioritize my emails through the Teams add-in, or does that aspect come into play through the Outlook add-in? So to answer that question right away is you're going to be spending most of your time in the Microsoft Teams integration, which is what I'm showing you right here. What I have on my screen, these are different projects to represent how I've seen different roles successfully kind of set up projects to manage these different sorts of emails that they're getting. So you are going to want to create those projects just by going to add project, but you're going to set them up through the Teams integration. What you're doing by creating these projects here is kind of setting the foundation for when you jump back to Outlook to help you say, okay, here's my projects dedicated to email management. Where do my emails fit in and where do I prioritize them? So we're setting the stage through Teams, and then we're jumping to Outlook to actually do the email management aspect of this. Hopefully that makes sense. I do want to share one more thing since we're looking at the kind of main Teams integration here is the aspect of being able to share these projects with your teammates. So I know a big challenge that a lot of us have is we receive an email and it's not just directed towards us. It's something that needs to be shared with our teammates. whether it's an invoice we need to look over, a contract agreement, or maybe it actually contains action items. Oftentimes, these emails do need to be passed along. So instead of forwarding those emails and causing, like I call it, a giant email traffic jam, you're able to create these projects and share them with your teammates, which allows Priority Matrix to be that central space for prioritizing emails and collaborating on them with your teammates to, again, keep your inbox cleaned up and hopefully get you to that inbox zero goal that a lot of us have. Okay, so shifting gears here, I have 4 projects that we'll pick from when it comes to the email management aspect. What we're looking at here now on my screen, I have an example selected, an example email selected. And on the right-hand side, I have the Priority Matrix and Outlook 365 add-in pulled up here for you. So if you haven't installed this already, just simply go to Get Add-ins, type in Priority Matrix, and install us from there. To get to this screen that I have, you're going to click on Send to Project. So essentially what we're doing is we are grabbing this email and we're turning it into a prioritized task in those projects that we've kind of pre-set up to, help us prioritize these emails. So I'll walk you through a couple steps here. The subject of this email turns into the item name. I'm going to call this webinar example just so we can all find it together super easily. You will be able to choose the project where you would like to prioritize this. So again, we're picking from kind of that bank of projects that we've set up through Teams. The quadrant here, so basically allowing us to prioritize it. And then we'll go in and we'll pick our due date. So this is definitely a best practice that I like to kind of share with everybody, which is the concept of setting a deadline. So 2 days from now, when I've received another 300 emails and I'm thinking, I think there was a contract I needed to review, but I don't have the bandwidth to go digging through my emails. I guess we'll just wait for that follow-up. This day and age, that's definitely not a great approach, but unfortunately it happens when you're flooded with emails and there's no real way to kind of set that deadline or that follow-up. Now with Priority Matrix, we've made that possible. So pick your due date, and then I'm just going to hit Create Action Item. So it gave me that little spinning wheel, basically gives me the heads up, says, hey, this item has been created, and we're good to go. So I'll pan back to this project here just so we can see what that looks like in kind of a live play here. So here it is, prioritized into the Contact Today quadrant. So if I were using this project with my teammates, now everybody would understand that this contract is a top priority. Maybe I delegate it to somebody on my team and say, hey, Bella, can you help me review this email, please? When she clicks on the notes, she's going to see the entire body of this email. So she has all the context she needs to help me manage this contract in this example for the email. You'll see that my deadline has been set, and we can also say, remind everybody in 3 days. So we have our due date for 5 days from now, but we also have a reminder scheduled as well. So, most likely this email will not be slipping through the cracks. What's also neat about having your emails prioritized is that when I go to a different view, such as our agenda view, you're going to see how these emails are going to play alongside all the other priorities that we have. But focusing on the use case for email management. So that's going to be the idea of creating a brand new task from an email. I would say, equally as popular is the concept of taking an email, and we often think to ourselves, I already have a couple of priorities that are really similar to this email. This may just be an update from a client, or maybe a progress update that's similar to a priority we are already working on. So what we do here is we're going to be able to see all of our Priority Matrix action items right here. So let's see if I could find one that's in that project that we're looking at. Let's see. Let's go back here and we'll use invoice tracking as an example. So I believe what I can do is I can just type in the name here, and it's going to help me find that task that I'm looking for. So here it is. If I click on it, it pulls it up where I can provide status updates. Maybe I say, hey, I have an update for everybody. We'll say this is going to be due tomorrow. So we all check out the update. And then I'm going to actually just click attach message here at the very top. So attach message, that option goes away, letting you know that that message has been attached to this item. So that's going to be the second option here, which is, as I mentioned, you're kind of grouping similar priorities together to avoid that duplication of tasks. We still can share these awesome updates, but we want to keep everything nicely paired together. So again, jumping back to Teams, here's that task where I had linked that email. So we can see in the bottom right corner, it says uploaded EML file, new contract. That was the name of the email. And it also shows up in resources. So if I click on this, it'll download the email for me and give me that context that we need. So I find this to be a pretty good place where I can kind of pause and ask for any questions about this email management aspect so far. There's two other things that I want to show you all, but that's going to be, I think, the kind of the gist of the Outlook 365 add-in. Okay, so it looks like we're good on questions for now, which is awesome. So there's one more thing that I want to show you in Microsoft Teams. If you're the kind of person that's feeling like, hey, I'm trying to stay away from Outlook, don't want to spend my day in there, can I see and prioritize my emails without being in Outlook? And before your exposure to Priority Matrix, the answer was probably going to be no. You need to go back to Outlook to see and manage your emails. But now with the new and improved search view in Priority Matrix, what's really incredible is that this is going to give you access to all of your priorities, including those emails that you've already managed and just kind of miscellaneous tasks that you're working on with your teammates. At the bottom here, where it says Office 365, we can see all of our emails, all of our shared files, and all of our calendar events. So if I scroll all the way down, I'll get to my emails. Here's an example here. Here's an email that's actually in my Outlook inbox. You can also search for specific emails up here in the search bar. But what we can do is we can either open it in Office 365, which will take me to my inbox, exactly to this email, or I can click Send to Priority Matrix, and we'll say, like, review this email. We'll say it's going to be due in 5 days. We can put it into the correct project. We'll say customer leads again, and then we'll say contact this week, add. So now we have prioritized this email from the search view exactly with the same end result that would have happened if we did it through Outlook. But the idea here is less context switching. We don't want you to be distracted with other things that are happening in other applications. Kind of just hang tight here in Microsoft Teams. But what's incredible is now you can see your emails and you can manage them as needed. So I do see the question here in the chat, which is, does it work with Teamworks app? And unfortunately, if I'm being completely honest, I'm not completely sure with what the Teamworks application is. I'd be happy to do a little bit of background research and let you know what type of integration we have with that tool. If it's through Office 365, then we likely do have some type of template that can help you set up that integration. But if not, then I'm not too confident what type of integration we may have there. Project management for Microsoft. Yeah, so we may have some sort of template or flow where you can set up that integration. If that's okay with you, I'll double check on this and then I'll send you an update if we do in fact have that integration. So to kind of tie all this together, the idea is, all right, so what's the big whoop about having the emails prioritized in Priority Matrix? So When we go to views like the agenda, what happens now is that I'm able to say, show me items I own. So now what we see are all of our meetings scheduled through Teams, all of our emails that are prioritized right here. Here's an example. And all of the different tasks and priorities that we're working on with our teammates, and only things that I have due for today and the next 7 days. So when it comes to a list of tasks that we need to get done, this is going to be all inclusive, and it's really nice because it's kind of all balled up into just one central space where we can make sure we're not missing deadlines. And as we looked at, we can also delegate and communicate as well whenever needed. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. This is a fantastic email management software, works incredibly well for helping people keep track of those top priorities that, oftentimes Outlook is kind of seen as that space where we receive communication from a lot of different angles, whether it's our clients, customers, contractors, and even those internal teammates and management as well. A lot of those updates are flying into our inbox. And, for a lot of us, it's like, okay, well, how do I keep track of these emails and how do I figure out my top priorities within these emails? It's essentially impossible if you're just leaving them in your inbox. But as soon as you get them prioritized into a project in your PM, things get a whole lot easier, which hopefully I was able to display that for you guys today. So, pausing again, any questions that we have, would love to answer those for you right now. I have a couple minutes left on here, so please don't hesitate to either drop those in the chat or you can raise your hand and I would love to answer those for you. With all of that being said, as I mentioned at the start of the session, if you're looking for more of kind of that standard introduction and looking to learn more about some of the advanced features, I have sessions for those on Thursday and Friday. So, be sure to tune into those where you can learn more, kind of backtracking, learning more about the basics of the system. Julianne, I see that you're typing here, so I'll give you another minute or so to get that question out. I'd love to see that and answer it for you. Okay, well, looks like we are all set then. So what I'm going to do is